Picture this. It is a quiet Sunday morning. No alarm went off. No one is asking you what is for breakfast. No compromises, no negotiations, no emotional labor before your first cup of coffee. Just you, your space, your silence, and the very specific kind of peace that only exists when you are completely, unapologetically alone. For millions of people across America and around the world, this is not a sad image. This is the dream. And in 2026, that dream is becoming the fastest growing lifestyle trend on the planet. Welcome to Intelevo Mind, where today we are diving deep into what sociologists are calling the Great Uncoupling, the historic and unprecedented shift towards solo living that is quietly rewriting the rules of modern life, relationships, and happiness itself.
Let us start with the data, because the scale of this shift is genuinely staggering. For the first time in recorded American history, single-person households now represent the largest single household type in the United States, surpassing married couples with children, surpassing roommate households, surpassing every traditional living arrangement that society spent centuries telling us was the only valid way to exist. Over 37 million Americans now live completely alone, and that number is accelerating at a pace that has demographers and sociologists scrambling to understand what is actually happening beneath the surface. This is not a temporary blip caused by a pandemic or an economic downturn. This is a fundamental, values-driven restructuring of how human beings are choosing to organize their lives. And the most fascinating part? The people choosing solo living are not lonely, not broken, and not giving up. In most cases, they are the happiest people in the room. Here at Intelevo Mind, we believe that major cultural shifts do not happen by accident. They happen when enough individual pain points reach a collective breaking point. And that is exactly what we are witnessing right now. The generation that grew up watching their parents sacrifice personal identity for the sake of relationships has quietly decided they want something different. The rise of remote work has eliminated the geographic pressure to couple up for financial survival in expensive cities. Therapy culture has made millions of people deeply aware of their own emotional needs in ways that previous generations simply were not. And social media, despite all its toxicity, has created communities of solo livers who are showing the world that a life lived alone does not have to be a life lived in loneliness. These forces did not exist 10 years ago with the same intensity, and in 2026, they have reached a cultural critical mass that is impossible to ignore. Now here is where it gets really interesting, and this is the kind of deep psychological insight that we live for at Intelevo Mind. Research in autonomy and well-being consistently shows that human beings have a fundamental psychological need for self-determination, the ability to make choices about their own lives without constant external interference. When you live with another person, no matter how much you love them, you are in a constant state of micro-negotiation. The temperature of a room, the volume of the television, the cleanliness of the kitchen, the schedule of the weekend, the energy in the shared space. All of it requires ongoing compromise. And compromise, even healthy compromise, is a form of cognitive and emotional labor that accumulates over time. Solo livers report dramatically higher levels of what psychologists call psychological sovereignty, a deep sense of ownership over their own mental and emotional environment. And it turns out that psychological sovereignty is one of the strongest predictors of long-term life satisfaction ever identified in the research.
The most common pushback against solo living is the assumption that it inevitably leads to loneliness and isolation. And this is where the data completely destroys the narrative. Studies consistently show that people who live alone actually maintain stronger, more intentional social connections than people who live with partners or families. Why? Because when you live with someone, it is incredibly easy to mistake proximity for connection. You are physically near another human being, so your brain registers a baseline level of social contact, even when the relationship has become emotionally distant or superficial. Solo livers, by contrast, have to be intentional about their social lives. They reach out, they make plans, they build communities, they invest in friendships. And the result is often a richer, more diverse, and more genuinely fulfilling social world than many coupled people ever experience.
Let us also be honest about the economic dimension of this shift. because it is impossible to separate lifestyle choices from financial realities. Solo living is expensive, and the people choosing it know that. They are making a conscious trade, less financial comfort in exchange for more personal freedom. But something interesting is happening in 2026. The explosion of remote work opportunities, the growth of the creator economy, the rise of AI-assisted productivity tools, and the increasing availability of smaller, more affordable urban living spaces are all combining to make solo living more economically accessible than it has ever been before. People are earning more flexible income, spending less on commuting, and finding smarter ways to manage solo household costs. The economic barrier to solo living is lower in 2026 than at any point in modern history, and that accessibility is accelerating the trend dramatically.
The great uncoupling is not just a lifestyle trend. It is a signal about what human beings actually need to thrive in the modern world. It is telling us that the traditional scripts around relationships, cohabitation, and family structure were written for a different era, with different economic realities, different psychological awareness, and different definitions of a life well lived. This does not mean that relationships are dying or that partnership is obsolete. It means that more and more people are choosing to enter relationships, if they enter them at all, from a place of genuine desire, rather than social pressure, financial necessity, or fear of being alone. And relationships chosen freely, without desperation or obligation, tend to be dramatically healthier, more equal, and more fulfilling for everyone involved.
The year 2026 is not the year that people gave up on love or connection. It is the year that millions of people finally gave themselves permission to stop organizing their entire lives around the fear of being alone. It is the year that solo living stopped being something to apologize for and became something to celebrate. Your life is yours. Your space is yours. Your peace is yours. And if you are someone who has been quietly wondering whether the path everyone told you to follow is actually the right path for you, then maybe the most important thing you can do right now is give yourself permission to ask that question honestly. Here at Intelevo Mind, our mission is to bring you the psychological and neuroscientific truths that help you understand yourself and your world more deeply. If this video made you think, made you question, or made you feel genuinely seen, then please subscribe to Intelevo Mind right now. Every single week, we go deep into the psychology, sociology, and brain science that most people never get access to. Hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell, and join our growing community of people who are committed to living with more intention, more awareness, and more genuine freedom. Your mind deserves the truth, and so do you.